Welcome to the Unscripted Woman Podcast, the show for women who are done living by the rules and ready to reinvent their lives from the inside out. If you're ready to design your next chapter on your own damn terms, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Unscripted Woman Podcast. This is a podcast made for women who are done living by the script that other people have written for them and are ready to write their own. My guest today is Catherine Lang-Cline. I'm really looking forward to this, by the way. Catherine is an award-winning CEO, author, and recognized industry leader. She's built her career on transforming ideas into impact. Her book, The Rules of the Game for Women in Business, distills 2 decades of real-world leadership into proven strategies for women ready to compete and win at the highest levels. Thank you so much for joining me.
It is absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I know when we did my pre-interview, we could have chatted for a while longer, but we needed to
Exactly.
save something.
Well,
So
your mission on this podcast is just so poignant. So I'm very excited to be a part of it.
awesome, that's great. So tell everybody about you. What's your background? I know you've been, two decades of leadership, but where did you start?
I actually started, kind of very modestly, just hoping to be a graphic designer somewhere. So I got a degree in art of all things. And it was a matter of, and I'm going to date myself just by saying that I was hired because I was the only one of the people that they interviewed that knew how to use a Macintosh. So that kicked off my advertising career, and I got into advertising and marketing, and essentially was always very, um, I don't know, itchy about the jobs. I would get bored, and I think that was probably my creative mind, and I would switch jobs off, and I would freelance. I would be full-time, freelance, full-time, corporate, small business. Um, but in all of that, I built a heck of a network. And I had someone approach me at one time while I was freelancing and said, it'd be really great if there was a company that could help me find marketing people specifically because I spend half of my job doing that. And I was like, oh, well, that would just be easy because I worked with companies like that and I have a huge network. So, yeah, someone should totally do that. And so she said, would you like to? And at that point, that's when we started Portfolio Creative, which I've since sold, but after 20 years. And it was essentially just it started as another creative project for me and evolved into taking me to a different level that I never knew that I could reach. Because, like I said, I just want to be an artist. And it really blossomed into something where I was now, on boards and I was winning awards and I was, directing a team and I was learning other things besides art, like HR and accounting and things like that. So it was just the perfect timing, the perfect step for me. Um, and like how I said in passing, I just recently sold it, so now I'm kind of onto the next thing, which is the book and other things.
Wow. So I want to look a little bit more at you building the business.
Hmm.
So someone approached you and just said, hey, this would be a really good idea.
Right.
How do you go from that to building a sellable business?
Oh, that's an excellent question. The idea of it was initially like, let's just try this for 6 months because after that, I'm out of money. I had some money saved and still was working a few freelance jobs, and it was like, let's just try it. And we both of us had enough experience in corporate and in myself just running my own business as a freelancer to just know enough to kind of start figuring it out. So I'm a very much of a proponent of, learn a lot of things in on other people's dime. So if you have a company that you're working for, learn more about the business. So that when someone says, can you build me a spreadsheet? You say, well, yes, I can. And I can read it and I can do all the other things. And, working with, your own taxes and things like that is a great way to start just kind of getting a taste of how accounting works. Um, a lot of it just came from finding, reading, Googling things, along the way. But we didn't have it at the beginning. So we had to, meet with people that would really kind of teach us how to do it. There was I don't know if they're still around, but there was this group called SCORE, which was all these retired executives that we learned a lot from. So essentially, we just sat in a class and said, here's how you do your accounting if you're in business. And because we were small, and just the two of us, it was pretty easy just to kind of figure it out. Once things got a little more complicated, we hired people to do that, the bookkeeping and things like that. But a lot of it was just what we learned along the way, reaching out to people that knew stuff that we didn't know and asking them to spend the time with us.
Wow. So, how big of a client was your company servicing?
At its height, well, we had 9 million in revenue, and probably our largest client was about 5 million.
Mm,
Um, and that was just a matter of, again, working on that network. That's one of the people that got us into this large company was somebody that I freelanced for at a much smaller company. She moved to the big company, and I said, hey, what about if we start working here? Also, I worked for a fair amount of corporations. They knew my work ethic. They knew, that I would get the job done. And I essentially said, I'm starting this business now. Would you take the opportunity or give me the opportunity to work with you in this capacity? And they were more than happy to at least give us a shot. Um, we had to prove ourselves, but we
mhm,
did. So they started working with us. We got contracts and really some relationships that lasted for years.
mhm. So I'm curious because I'm very much a networker.
Hmm.
And it's kind of funny because someone will say, "Oh, I need this." I'll be like, "I know
Hmm.
someone." I
Right,
need
right.
this. I know someone. Um, Obviously on a much smaller scale.
Hmm.
So how were all these people, like your network, were they people that you just met through your freelancing, or were you actively networking in groups to build that connection?
When I started, it was just the people that I met along the way. After that, I started getting involved in groups. Um, so I joined a couple of Chamber of Commerce. I joined NAWBO,
Sorry, what's
which
NABO?
I'm sorry, that's a National Association of Women Business Owners.
Okay.
Just getting in the room with other people like yourself, excuse me, is super important. Just in that, um, well, like for the chamber, for example, you go to their events and all the people in the room there are potential clients or people you should know or people that know people. Um, so in my book, I do discuss the the how-to of a lot of that. How do you walk into a room and start making friends, basically? And
Mm,
how do you work on the people that you already know? How do you make the ask that doesn't sound like an ask? How do you build relationships and things like that? And that was just over the years, just me doing that over and over and over again.
mhm,
Um, Many times I would walk. Well, one of the things that was a great tip that I got from someone is that you walk into a room basically and you look for another CEO. If you're a CEO of your own company, you absolutely can go over to another CEO, even if it's a bigger company, and just start a conversation. So I did that often, introduce myself. Hi, I'm the CEO of my company. I understand you're the CEO of your company, basically a little more fast than that.
mhm,
But we automatically made a connection. And that's really what it takes to start building those friendships, those partnerships, is finding that connection.
mhm. I'm curious because the what networking looks like has changed so much since 2020.
Hmm.
I always found it far easier to make that connection in person.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Now there are so many that are online, but you don't see, and I'm very much energy based
Hmm.
with people. And while I can still intuit their energy over the internet,
Hmm.
it's not the same thing as shaking their hand.
It isn't.
So, what advice would you give to people who are, looking at building a business or have just started a business in today's networking landscape?
Well, if it's at all possible, if you can sell to a lot of people locally, start there and go to every event that you can think of that people will be at. And you never know who your next champion is going to be. And I refer to, champions in my book as well, but those are the people that really make those connections for you. Um, in many cases, the people I would meet were not my client, but they knew someone. Kind of like the example you just gave. I need something, I know someone. It's a lot of that. Um, and it's sometimes where they would say no, and you're like, okay, we don't need it now, but we've met. And if you ever do need my service, we've met and you know how to find me. Um, Leaving a lot of open windows, just basically for people to know that you're the expert, expert, expert. So you can go to Rotary, you can go to even just any community event, really, where there are people. Everybody there has a job, everybody works somewhere, everybody knows someone. And the more that you um, plant the seeds, if you will, for an analogy, the more you're going to be able to harvest later. Not all the seeds germinate, but a fair amount of them do. And you start building on those and you start working on your reputation. If that is not at all a possibility for you to do that, I would really recommend making yourself really well known, like in social media, particularly LinkedIn or some sort of a business equivalent. And I post a lot, at least once a week, just to keep showing that I'm the expert in this. Hi, it's me. This is what I do. Hi, it's me. This is what I do over and over and over again. And then when people do need that service, because it's all timing, um, then they will call you or they'll know that you're the expert on this particular thing. I mean, staffing companies are dime a dozen for the most part, but we just focus on marketing people only. So that was an easy way to sell it. This is our specialization. Don't call somebody else. If you need marketing people, you call us because we understand you. And that can be applied to really much anything. So really figuring out who that client is, getting really focused on these are the only people I help. Um, this is my specialty because I understand your problem. So it's a lot of just becoming the expert, expert, expert. And then when people are randomly out and perhaps they've met you or they've heard of you, then they will refer to you because, we would be out and say, oh, I need a marketing person. Oh, did you know there's a place that does that? And they would just refer to us that way sometimes. But
Mhm.
one of the things about timing that I'm talking about too is like in my neighborhood, there's a lot of trees and we use like a service to occasionally do the pruning, especially after a storm. But sometimes they just come by and leave a little business card in your door. Guess who I'm calling? Because the timing is right. There's a branch in my house. Boom. Oh my God, here's a card. I might have five of these cards and use five different services. And they all were great. But because of the timing, that's the person that I called. So you always have to make sure that you're always in people's faces all the time.
Mhm. Okay. So when you look at online networking now,
Hmm.
how do you suggest people approach it to stand out? Like I know I belong to a women's networking group online, um, and they would do breakout rooms where you would have, 4 minutes to talk to
Hmm.
somebody
Hmm.
else,
Hmm.
which is fantastic. I mean, it allows you to make some connections,
Right.
but it's really not enough
Hmm. Hmm.
to say, oh, well, this is who I'm going to think of. Like, I'm not great
Right.
with names. By the end of it, I don't remember who I spoke to. If I see their picture, I will.
Hmm.
And there's no business card being handed and
Right.
that sort of thing. What strategies work in the more fast-paced, short attention span, instant information online world?
Well, I have utilized some things like, for example, like if I'm doing any sort of post, always include a photo. It stops people every time. It's way more activity in that regard. Always go through and like the posts of other people too, so you start getting some interaction. It can't be a one-sided conversation. You have to be just as involved as you want them to be. Um, get, LinkedIn will allow you to do a newsletter, and that goes out as often as you want. I usually do one once a month. That's very specific. It's geared towards visionaries because we always have get distracted by shiny objects, and we
Mm-hmm.
think all of our ideas are great. So how do you deal with that when you have a company? So I talk a lot about that and just distraction, and it's super short too because people get distracted. So it's like a 1 minute read. And then I
Mm-hmm.
have another one too that's just basically about, on the book that I'm doing, but it's constant. You sometimes do videos, so people will be scrolling and they don't have to necessarily watch the whole thing, but they see your face, see your face, see your face. You can do like live webinars and things like that. Always record them because chances are timing again is not great for people. You might get only one or two people attending your live webinar, or whatever your presentation that you're doing, always pretend like there's a large crowd there.
Hmm.
So there's never, it's like, hey, I'm so glad everybody's here, and I'll be checking the questions in the chat, and um, have your own questions if nobody's posting questions. So here's a question somebody has, and it's your question, but it doesn't matter. And the reason you record that is so you can reuse that content, and or
Hmm.
people can go back to it, and you post it on your website or things like that, and you start creating almost like a little industry for yourself where it's just promoting your brand, just promoting you, just promoting what it is that you do. I think a lot of people get really intimidated by just the whole big bite of selling, when for me, I distilled it down to it's just me having a conversation with you. It's me because I have an expertise in something, and you must know what this one thing is that's going to make your life easier.
Hmm.
And when you have that kind of passion for it, it's not so much of a conversation of, oh, you need this widget. It's more about, no, I really want to help you. And then when people start seeing that you are that go-to person, they come to you for a lot of different things. And that's how I started getting involved with, boards and things like that too, is because people are like, oh, you are a helper. You're a person that likes to serve others. You like to build relationships. We want you on our board. And you have been proven an expert by all the stuff that you put on LinkedIn. Um, so yeah, it's really about, kind of creating your brand where people will stop and look. I mean, there's certain people that are posting, and I know who that person is, so I might give it a second look, might read it. And it takes a little time, so you have to be a little patient, which I know a lot of people don't have. But if you kind of treat that as just let me just get this stuff done, now I can go back to my work. Let me get this stuff done, now I can go back to my work. I think marketing sometimes, especially self-marketing, is a bit of a challenge, and even more so for women because we're incredibly humble. We want to be liked. And if we feel like we're too in your face, people are going to get kind of turned off. But I can tell you that people inundate me all the time with stuff, and I don't get tired of it if they're,
Hmm.
approachable, and if they're fun, if they're interesting. We see a lot of speakers all the time, and to your point, some we never remember their names, but there's other ones that you're like, oh my God, that was a great talk, and that was worth, dialing in for. That's
Hmm.
kind of where you want to get, because then it starts getting a little more fire to it. But it's really just about being consistent, understanding your brand, being the same. I address a little bit about this in my book too, where you almost create an emoji of yourself. So when people see you, they're like, oh, it's her. It's kind of like if somebody made a little emoji of Steve Jobs that just walked into a game and he had a black turtleneck on and some
Hmm.
jeans and some glasses and a beard. People are like, oh, that's obviously Steve Jobs. It's almost like that, where you're coming into a room and people recognize you automatically. People are scrolling through the list, people recognize you automatically.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of consistency. It's a lot of, for me, I typically have a black t-shirt on or black turtleneck on, always got the cool glasses and bright lipstick. So they know it's me when I'm going through the feed. So, or even when I would walk into a room, like, oh, I know you from somewhere. Oh, great. That's a start. So yeah, I'm probably covering way too much stuff in that one simple question that you asked me, but
No, it's fascinating. I'm loving
okay,
it.
okay, great. And yeah, it's just about switching your brain a little bit to think more about how you're selling you as the company, as your expertise, as what you're bringing, and what you're bringing is like all the care and the friendship, the emotion, all of that. People want to be your friend, and then the rest is kind of easy. So,
Mhm.
but the hardest, the most patient part is just being consistent. It might take actually a couple of years to do that, which I hate to say there's no magic formula, but I can tell you that what I did worked, which is why I decided to write the book for for one
Mhm.
reason.
So we're going to get into the book in a second. I did have a funny story I wanted to tell you. This
Oh,
just
good.
happened like yesterday. So I used to post on LinkedIn all the time, and I have a large network on LinkedIn, but my posts never really had much traction. And I think it's because it's almost like Instagram now. A post comes up and 10 seconds later it's gone. It's been
Hmm.
replaced with something else. So I did a post different from what I normally do. And it was a little, I don't want to say confrontational, but it was very much you know, if you are doing this, it's your own fault you're not moving.
Mm.
And I got a comment. I had almost 1,400 views within
Oh,
probably four
nice.
hours.
Nice.
And I had a comment where this woman just went off on me and she completely misconstrued what I was saying.
Hmm.
And of course, your first reaction when someone comes at you like that is to get your back up,
Right.
right? I thought, no, no, I'm going to, walk the talk. And I said to her, and she was talking about, how it was me victim blaming them for someone else having
Oh,
power.
man.
I'm like, I said nothing like that.
Right, right.
I'm saying if they actually look deeper and manage to heal this, this, and this, as women, we would be unstoppable.
Absolutely.
And she never responded.
Yeah. She probably didn't read it in its
Yeah,
entirety or something.
yeah. She went off on some weird thing about how now we can't even sue physicians when they don't treat us right. And I'm like, what are you talking
What?
about?
Wow. Well, she clearly had a nerve exposed somewhere in
I
there.
know, I know. But it was just, it surprised me because I never
Hmm.
thought of LinkedIn as a place where A, people are going to come after you. Made me laugh, but,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it just really, the fact that, the positive posts get minimal views,
That's interesting.
but the one that might press a button or two gets like 1,400.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good point because there is so much content out there. It has to be really, offer a punch for people to stop. I was also told this too, which I thought was really interesting, is like sometimes when things you don't get a lot of engagement on it, doesn't mean people are not reading it though either. I've had it where, maybe I don't post for a while and somebody, oh, what happened to you? I haven't seen your posts in a while. Or I see your posts all the time and I really love them. And I'm like, well, like them. Would you just like
Yeah.
them? Because I don't know that you see this. So there is some truth to people just don't necessarily like things. They just read them and they do appreciate them. But sometimes, just, engagement that is a little punchy, if that gets a rise out of people, get some responses. There's also, you can put like those little quizzes in there. People love those little quizzes. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just pick one of these four things that typically will get a lot of interaction. I can recommend every once in a while boosting a post that you think is really important. I think you can get like 5 days of it boosted for like $50 or something. So there's definitely little things that you can do to just kind of get a little more traction on some stuff, a little more exposure. But even when I've done that, it might say, this has been seen a million times, and you might get like, six reactions and two comments, and you're like, wait, are you telling me that nobody else thought anything about that? Apparently they do, but not everybody does make a comment. But again, it's just exposing more of yourself to a larger group, especially if,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, you think something is important, or if you decide, I'm going to go all in on this one message. And I want it to be out there. And we have probably seen some things that pop up for like 10 days in a row because people are paying for those. But
Mm-hmm.
after a while, you do start noticing, and, it
Yeah.
is about that repetition. People do have, they're busy, they're short-term memory. I was, back in the day where people would advertise in magazines, like actual paper magazines, and you had just like, the flip of a page to get somebody's attention. You'd be like flip,
Mm-hmm.
flip, flip, and then you might stop because a picture was cool or the headline was cool. It's the same sort of thing. What photo, what headline do you have that's going to stop people even for a second to
Mm-hmm.
want to see more? Yeah, the game has just changed digital, but it is kind of the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. I'll never understand how the algorithms work.
That I cannot necessarily have control over, but I mean, if you keep the idea of, at least initially, the ideas of the algorithms are if you are looking up something, you're interested in something, they want to sell you something or help you find more information on it. So you have to kind of look at it as a really down and dirty sort of assistant say, oh, like, or your mom, like, oh, I know you like dolls, so I got you a doll. Like, mom, that was when I was 12, but oh, I still thought you liked dolls. So sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, sometimes the timing
Mm-hmm.
again is not right. But if you are looking up something, more than likely it's going to want to give you more of the, oh, you're interested in that. Let's give you more of that. And then you'll change it, look up something else. You'll start getting more things in your feed on that.
Mm-hmm.
That also works in a way too, where if everybody's talking about one thing, talk about that too. And what's the
Mm-hmm.
hot topic right now? Um, and write a little something about it because then it's gonna, hashtag it. It's gonna come up in everybody's feed and in everybody's algorithm because everybody's looking up that one thing. So there are some
Right.
ways you can kind of play the game in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. And it's odd. Like I know your business is mostly focused on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Um, but I find it kind of odd how on LinkedIn, if you post once or twice a week, that's high for
Oh
LinkedIn.
yeah,
But Instagram, they're like, post three
it's
times a
daily.
day.
I
Who has time?
know. Well, you have to kind of go where your clients are. So, like if you're
Hmm.
selling goods, for example, Instagram would be fantastic. A lot of people shop on Instagram and on TikTok. Facebook is another one too. But Facebook is a little more personal. So if you are selling like personal items, like clothing or
Hmm.
makeup or something, those are the sort of things you would want to gear towards. And if you have videos where you can show people how to use the twirl in the dress or wear the makeup or something like that, that is really kind of key. If you're selling a service, that tends to be a little more LinkedIn. But you really have to go where your client is. So for me, I've always have been targeting, directors of companies, CEOs, things like that,
Hmm.
and they usually are on LinkedIn. Whereas when we would try and find talent, for example, that we're trying to place, they were more like on the Instagram and Facebook and other things like that, where I think they could kind of play a little more.
Hmm.
So yeah, you have to really figure out where your client is and don't feel like you have to do everything because there's like about 1,000 different things you could be on.
Hmm.
Just know where your client hangs out and just spend all your time doing that.
Hmm. Good advice. So I see the book in the background,
Yes.
The Rules of the Game for Women in Business. So what made you write it?
When I sold my business, I kind of felt, like you kind of jump off a cliff in a way. There's nothing. And I had started getting into mentoring some people, and I realized, and I had been mentoring people like for years, but I was gonna let that just kind of be my own little kind of side hustle of just meeting with some women and giving some advice. And I was finding that I was repeating myself a lot
Hmm.
for women on things that they should do, strategies they should follow, things that work for me. And I was like, you know what? I should just write a book about this so I can hopefully help more women, kind of get an idea of what I did to, basically starting from that graphic designer position, all the way up to a woman who sold a multi-million-dollar business. And it's the tricks that I kind of picked up along the way as far as networking, as far as getting past a lot of, um, you know, um, my confidence levels, imposter syndrome, that's the word I was thinking of. And how do you get in the room? How do you talk to the people? How do you win the awards? How do you, make the right connections? And there was a system that I kind of followed, and that's why I'm kind of made it the rules of the game because it's mostly the tactic of looking at it as a little bit of a game, having a strategy, figuring out how everybody else is playing. It's kind of like when you go into a room for the first time, you're like, okay, what is happening here? How is the game being played here? We have a group of guys over here talking. We have maybe some women over here. There's some people at the bar. So, all right, so where do I want to go? Where do I want to run the ball on this? Where am I going to go towards to first? And if one door is closed, what's the other way around to get into the window? If this is how this person responds to me walking into the room, the only woman in the room, especially the one that has the blonde hair and the bright lipstick, and it's how do I approach this? And there were just some little things that I did that got me noticed, got me memorable. And I would walk up to people maybe at the next, or run into them at maybe even, let's just say, somewhere at some other event or socially and be like, hi, we met before. I'm Catherine. Oh, yes, I remember you. And that's a huge step because I've run into people and I was like, oh, hi, we've met before. And I'm like, did we? Did we meet before? Help me figure this out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's just about really, kind of, and you're mostly memorable. Don't think you have to be, like I said, dress kind of consistently, but don't think it to be over the top. But just be memorable in some other way. And it's just really simple stuff like rather than walking up to somebody and immediately saying, "Hi, I want to sell you something," basically,
Hmm.
it's maybe you offer them a compliment of some kind. And that could be anything from like, "Hi, I had to meet you because I know all that you do in the community and I wanted to say thank you." And then and you introduce yourself in that way. And I've always admired you. You could say, "Oh my God, you probably have the best shoes here," or that suit is fantastic. I don't know if anyone's told you today, but you probably have, that suit fits you fantastic or something like that. But it's just something that just is a little out of left field, complimentary. Then they're like, oh, thank you, because that automatically changed how they felt. And
Hmm.
it goes back to that Maya Angelou saying of, people, how you make people feel basically is more important than, what you do.
Hmm.
Um, so I always kind of kept that kind of resonating in my mind. So what can I do to make this person's day? What can I make them smile? What can I make them laugh? What can I do that's going to make me different than everybody else in this room who's trying to sell something? And especially when you start talking to the people of the large, large, large companies, that's all they want to do. How do I get in? Hi, my name is so and so. How do I get into your company? And there's
Hmm.
nothing more off-putting than that. And I just remember that feeling when I did graphic design and I worked for a large company, very large company. And people would always call me, "Hi, we want to sell you printing. We want to sell you this. We want to sell, and I'm like, just stop calling. Just stop calling because when I have somebody I work with, and just know that this is what these people are thinking too. I have somebody I work with. I know what I'm getting with these people, and starting a new vendor was just so cumbersome. So automatically know those three things when you meet with anybody trying to sell.
Hmm.
And if you start getting more into the negotiation part of it, or you're starting to get a little more into what you do, say, here's what we do. We want you to be perfectly happy. We work with some of these other companies and they're happy. Nobody ever likes to be the first one to try out. So always be prepared to throw out some big names you worked with or some medium-sized name that you work with. And um, and then people will start listening, start listening, start listening. They will probably say no. Great, we've met. When I see you again, I'll just check in with you and see how you're doing. We've met, and and if I ever need somebody, I'll pass it on to you. For an example, too, what you can do as far as being a helper for somebody else is for us, um, we not only needed clients, but we needed talent. So I would approach maybe somebody to try and be their client or have them be my client. And they'd say, nope, nope, not going to help you. And this is a true story where it was a large energy company I really wanted to work with. And they said, no, we will never use you. I mean, it's as simple as that. We have a company, we will
Hmm.
never use you. Excuse me. So I said, okay, well, that's fine. Do you ever have people that come to you and interview and they're the second best? You hired the best, and there's a second best person. I would love to have those resumes. So if there's people you think are great and you really want to help find a job, um, pass those on to me because I would love to help them. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, we could probably do that. And I started walking away, and then he said, I have a daughter that is graduating from art school. Would you mind talking to her? Oh my God, I would love to talk to her. So you know what? Now we're best friends because
Hmm.
I'm helping out his daughter. So it's crazy how some of this stuff works. And while we still never worked for that company, he did tell other people about us. And I would always run into him at events. Was always very nice. My daughter said she had a great talk with you. Thank you so much. I want to introduce you to somebody else. And he would take me to meet somebody else. And now it's a warm call because somebody else is introducing me. So it is really, like I said, it's about thinking a little bit differently on how you want to build that relationship. I'm not even going to say make a sale. How you want to build that relationship because people will work with who they like, will work with who they respect and trust. And even if they have somebody they will take to their dying day as their vendor, that doesn't mean they can't help you in some other way.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that story.
So anyway, so yeah, back to the book. I knew all these things. So I wanted to basically I was talking about it was a game, and one thing that I realized, let me really reel this back a little bit. Um, is that not only was it a game that was kind of played like a chess game in a way, but I also found out or discovered pretty quickly that all the terms in business are sports related because men started business first. And we're
Hmm.
coming in and trying to play the game, but we're showing up, with hockey sticks and everybody else has baseball bats, and they're like, well, I thought I was supposed to bring something like this. And they're like, no. So we don't want you to play because you don't get it. But if you kind of go in knowing all the terminology, and it kind of comes to you, you'll figure it out, especially if you're familiar at all with sports. But we have coaches and we have scorecards and we have check-ins and we have huddles and we have all these other things that people use all the time. just know that for a majority of the people in the room, sometimes all the people in the room, that's the mindset they're in. So you could start conversations just by saying, and kind of make sure you are speaking the truth here when you say, "Did you watch the game on Saturday or Sunday?" And they will have some sort of response to it. And you don't have to necessarily know anything necessarily about it. You kind of you say, I missed it, but I'm glad that they won, lost, whatever. But so you can even start conversations as simple as that. But everything I found out was kind of based on that sports sort of mentality, and they want people that are going to participate and not just hang out in the grass or hang on the bench. A lot of women decided to be observers for a while. I remember being invited to a city sponsored meeting where they wanted to meet with small business owners that were all women. We want to see how we can help you in some regard. All the women filed in. I, of course, sat next to the speaker or the person that didn't have a name tag. I was like, I want to be up front so people see me. I can ask questions and, just be a part of this conversation. I swear every other woman started sitting in the seats along the wall. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is our meeting. Sit at the table, sit at the table. And they're like, no, 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 I'm good. I'm good back here. And the city officials started coming in. They were the assistants to the people that want to meet with us. And they said, can you sit at the table? Because this is where all the assistants are going to sit. And they're like, oh, oh. I mean, I thought that was crazy. It's like sit where you can be seen, where you can hear everything. If you're sitting next to the person speaking, everybody's gonna be looking at you at some point,
Hmm.
because I'm next to this person. So there's some strategies about being in the game, right in it, in that huddle, and being a participant versus just kind of hanging out in the back or not coming prepared or not having some understanding of what game is being played in that particular room. I mean, because we've been to different events too, where you're like, oh, this is way more casual than I thought it would be, or this is way more formal than I thought it would be. Know these things ahead of time. But it is, like I said, it's about at that point you walk in the room and they already know that you're there to play and you are immediately invited versus like when you would pick teams when you were a kid and I'll
Hmm.
take Johnny and I'll take Susie and then little Timmy was left behind because well he doesn't know how to play the game or he's not good at it so he was the last one picked. Yeah, you want to be one of
Hmm.
those first people picked.
Oh my God, it's like high school all over again.
It kind of is. It prepared us for this. It's not exactly, but it prepared us for this. But what I do in my book, though, too, is I refer to a lot of these things like that. And why in some cases we do hold back on wanting to be that person. Um, I got to the point where I chose, people would ask me to do things, and sometimes people say, say no often and do the things you want to do. There are some things I wasn't 100% thrilled with doing. I mean, it ended up being interesting, so I'm glad I did it. But I felt I should do it just so people could see a woman in that role. Like, for example, on a board seat, I might be like, you know what, I am going to take this because I think women need to see women on, or be a speaker at an event, or be on a panel. A lot of women will say, there's probably somebody better. No, it's you. They called you. Figure it out. You'll be fine. And especially panel discussions are so easy. And but always do it because I need to see women on stage. I need to see women at the podium. I need to see women in the chair. And sometimes it's a little bitter pill, but after I did it, I was like, you know what? I feel like I've actually kind of accomplished something. I did something important. So that's one thing too that I like to let women know as well is that, in order to build the momentum, we have to be preparing, we have to be participating, and we have to get in the game.
Hmm. So the book itself has 10 rules,
Hmm.
and we don't have time, of course, to get into all of them. So I asked you to pick two,
Yes.
your two favorites.
Yes. And
What are they?
yeah, we did touch upon one of them, which was the showing up and participating.
Hmm.
I think sometimes too that, people are like, I'm working really hard. Why isn't anybody noticing? And because we're all busy. We're all busy with our own things. And you have
Hmm.
got to be the person that does the self-promotion, that does show up, that does go to the events. There was a time when before the pandemic where I would probably be in like go to 3 to 4 different things a week, lunches, gatherings, conversations where people were in, or I would schedule a lunch myself and meet with somebody just to constantly get in that practice of meeting with people and networking and things like that. And that just shows that you are out there, you're active, you're doing things, people are seeing you, you are, contributing something. And I think, like I said, sometimes people are waiting for that invitation. They're waiting for, they're going to these events and they're sitting at a table hoping people are going to gather around, or I'm just going to go and I'm going to listen, like I said again, which is, why even bother going? Especially some of those events can be costly too. So if it's like $100 a plate thing, just for an example, make sure you're getting $100 worth of conversations in. You think about who should I talk to today, and who's the big person in the room I want to meet, and just introduce myself. Like I said, you don't have to settle that person. Go
Mhm.
up to them, say something nice. Thanks for being here. I appreciate what you do in the community. I think you're what I think you look great. I don't know, something, um, but just be in the room, lurking, and showing up so people know that you show up. That person shows up. That person is a player, that's kind of where you want to get.
Mhm.
And the other one is be your own agent, which kind of applies a little bit to this too, where you have got to be the one that promotes you. Like I said, the magic does not just happen. I It took me a while. Well, this is a great story. When I first did open my business with my business partner, on our cards we made ourselves directors of marketing and directors of people or something like that. And I handed it to somebody. I said, I thought you owned the company, and I said yes. And they said, why are you a director? Why aren't you the CEO? And I'm like, oh my God, I never thought of myself as a CEO. So after I was like, I'm going to have to do it. I said, Kristen, throw away the cards. We have new titles. And I had to basically tell people, hi, I am the CEO of my company. It was the two of us. I mean, but still, I am the CEO of this company. I have to be my own agent. I had to promote myself. And when we started winning awards, I would, say, this is an award-winning company. This is a multi-million-dollar company. This is, I'm an award-winning CEO. I'm an
Mhm.
author, whatever. But really start owning that stuff and being your own agent, and just, just like how an agent would work for you, and even in negotiating stuff, they know what you're worth. The agent knows what you're worth. If you're your own agent, you have to figure out what you're worth too. And if somebody tries to talk you down a price, be like, you know what? I know I'm good, and this is what it's worth, and this is what I want to pay. This is what you should pay for it. You sometimes have to justify it a little bit, or maybe noodle it a little bit so they feel like they're winning. But
Mhm.
just always being your own advocate for yourself is really, really huge. And it's, like I said, sometimes really challenging because we're always told to be so humble. And but I took it kind of two different ways. One, I started had to thinking of myself as a third person that I'm promoting, but then I got a little more comfortable when I just started saying, I'm just speaking the facts. It is a fact that we have won awards. It is a fact that we service, huge companies. It is a fact that we will find you the best people for the best price, or a price that fits your budget or what have you. But all facts, and it made it a lot easier to self-promote in that regard. And really, that's what an agent would do for you too. I have the best player on that could be on your team. This is what they want to make. This is what they can do for you. It's the
Mhm.
exact same thing.
Right. And I think transferring that into a corporate culture, people, women in particular, I find, are so hesitant to come out and ask for the promotion or ask for the raise, ask for the recognition.
Yes.
I never understood that. I've never had a job where I won't just write the
Yeah,
boss and say, and I mean, I've been in corporate for forever. Listen, this is my job description. This
right.
is what I do. This is how much money I've made the company. This is what I think I'm worth.
That's exactly it.
But so many people, especially women, are so afraid to do that. They don't recognize their worth. And I think some of them are afraid that if they ask for it,
Hmm.
it means they're going to, get in trouble or flag
Right.
them when there's layoffs or, how do I justify my worth?
Yeah. But you basically outlined that perfectly, where you are delivering them facts. These
Hmm.
are facts. I'm not, saying you need to promote me because I've been here for 5 years. I'm telling you that this is what I've done for your company. And I think that this needs to be, I think I deserve this sort of thing. And there's been a couple instances where I've mentored women and they're like, oh, I don't know. I said, you know what? A man would do it in a heartbeat. In a
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat, they would walk in and ask for that promotion. So what makes him more um, capable than you? And then which they are like, oh, well, that's true. Um, so that's why it goes back to a little bit of the game. That's how the game is played. And the boss does expect you to come in and say something like that to a certain degree. And if you're bringing facts, you at least have something to work with versus I'm like, oh, I don't know what you do. Become
Mm-hmm.
prepared, be ready to play and be like, here's what I have done. Here's what, and then, if it falls on deaf ears, for example, guess what? You've written half your resume for the next job.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think people have to realize corporations aren't going to volunteer their money.
Oh, no, 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 no.
They're not going to walk up to you and say, you know what? I think you need an extra 10,000, 20,000 a year.
Absolutely.
If you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
You don't get exactly, exactly. And what happens is guys will go in and ask, and next thing you know, they're making 20,000 more than you a year, and you're doing the exact same job. But
Mm-hmm.
it's because, Bob went in and proved that, well, I'm a hardworking guy, well, then I guess Susie isn't, and sure, yeah, you've proven that you do earn, and I don't want you to leave. So yeah, here's more money. So yeah, it's really getting into that mindset and understanding that yes, you have to be your own agent. This is expected. And especially, and if you want to wait till like a review time or something, that's perfect. Say, hey, I had a great year, and here's what our let's talk about my next steps for promotion. If you're not, or what would it take for me to get this raise, or what would I have to do to, so at least there's an understanding because then when you do it, you can go back and say, I did it, and I'll give you the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
there's a couple of ways of handling that, but be doing it as here's the history of my work and just presenting it, I think it's very bold and leadership, a leadership quality. So I think that I would hope that your boss would look at that as a positive thing. And if not, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, then it's maybe not your place. I
Right.
change jobs
And
a lot, so it's
yeah.
don't think of loyalty as a thing.
Yeah. I did too. Um, so the book is available on
It's on
Amazon.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever books are found. There are the links on my website,
Mhm.
which is catherinelangcline.com, nice and easy. Or you can go to Amazon and just, or any place and just type in the search of the rules of the game for women in business. And I should
Perfect.
pop up.
And you mentioned briefly, do you still mentor women?
I'm on a little bit of a break right now, for family reasons, but I am waiting to see. Here's kind of a little bit of it too, is I wanted to write this book and I was like, well, if the book does great, people still want to hear from me. If it doesn't, then they don't. So once I wanted to get the book a little bit settled. All of my promotion is going into the book right now. And after that, if I start getting some interest of people wanting me to, I have some that are wanting me to do some public speaking. So there could be some traction to this, but I would be more than happy to entertain somebody who would like to be mentored. I can tell them that I am on Substack. And I do a weekly post there, which talks a little more in depth about the book or a little bit mentorship tips. And I want to kind of spin that into maybe some videos too. So rather than doing one-on-one, like I said, I'm really kind of trying to get the masses of people here at this point,
Hmm.
so I can kind of have it all, as I say, and kind of have a little more control over my time versus having to be on someone else's schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, you might want to, when the time is ready, you might want to look into like a group setting,
Yeah, yeah.
because then you're only doing it once a week
That's true.
but you're
That's
getting as
true.
many people as are interested.
Yeah, like a mastermind or something like
Yeah.
that. That's definitely on my list. But like I said, the book came out in October, so I'm just kind of basking in that a little bit, and
Yeah.
then I will kind of come up with the next thing. Because now I have time. I have time to do things. So yeah, and I
Right.
love helping women in this regard because a lot of it is just stuff you wouldn't necessarily think about. There's been a couple of th questions that I've asked some women, and they're like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." And I mean, that's what a lot of these women veterans are for.
Hmm.
The ones that have done it. And another thing I'll just one of the chapters in the book too is about finding your cheerleaders and champions. One of the big moves that happened to me was where I had a champion, and a champion is somebody who just walks you in that room and makes things happen. She was the one that got me started on getting on boards and things like that because she walked up to me and said, "I put your name in for this committee position, and you're gonna do it." And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Surprise.
I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And she's like, "Oh, I know, and you're going to do it." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess." I mean, I respected her. I knew her, I mean, fairly well. So, okay, I guess I'll do it. It was great. It got me in the door there. And she goes, "You know what? I am rolling off this committee," because she was on that committee too. "I'm rolling off this committee, and I want you to chair it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I just got on it. Are you sure?" "Yep, you're doing it." I got to chair it. Because I chaired that committee, I had to be on the big board because those committees had to report to the board. So then I
Mhm.
got to sit with the board people, and I did my term there. And they said, "Hey, do you want to stay on as a board member?" So regular board member. So then I ended up working with them for another three more sessions or three more, 3-year things. But yeah, it was just somebody basically saying, "You know who you need to meet," or "Here's what you're going to do." And that, I mean, those people are around everywhere.
Mhm.
And sometimes you just have to ask them to help you. In this case, she shoved me into it, which I totally appreciate. But there have been some people too that I have, like I'll see like we're looking for speakers. If I know somebody, I'll put their name in, and then I'll tell them later, "I put your name in for this." So I'm kind of working the same sort of magic that she did for me. But those people are out there for you. And if you're like, "Do you have any connections to, I'd love to speak at your event or whatever," just ask. That's how you
Mhm.
get.
Yeah, absolutely. Good advice.
Well, thank you. Thank
Very
you. And
good
there's more in the
advice.
book, so please.
Yeah, it sounds, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I think I might be buying one and taking a look at it.
Okay, well, and I totally encourage people to not only read it and then even just give it to somebody else to read or
Hmm.
just buy them for friends or things like that. It's just like a lot of just really super helpful things, or at least things that I believe that can really help people, women in particular, change their game. So
Hmm.
yeah, but for me, it's just about just getting the word out. I couldn't leave business without a few parting words.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And, sitting here thinking after our discussion, because the women I work with, I focus more on the mindset and energetics aspect. But to have a resource that gives more of the real world strategies
Oh
is
yeah.
quite helpful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's funny you mentioned that too, because I do have a chapter of that in the book too,
Oh,
where we're
you
talking
do?
about mindset
Yeah.
and the voices in your head and all those things too that kind of help you, I guess, again, with your confidence and why you don't do some things sometimes and how to change that. So,
Hmm.
and those are all things that I did to kind of get myself in a better place to then be more effective with other people. Because, if you're kind of beating yourself down or if you're just stopping short because you think this is all I deserve or this is all I'm good at, you'd be surprised. Like I said, I thought I was going to be a graphic designer, and
Hmm.
I just kept pushing myself, and that's and not like my knees never got my um I never felt like I over challenged myself. I always felt like it was just a really good challenge at that time and opportunities, taking advantage of opportunities and not
Hmm.
backing down on those. So
Yeah.
yeah, oh, that's all in there. That's all in there. So
Awesome. Good, good. So you mentioned Substack
yes,
and you mentioned your website. Where
yes.
else can people find you if they're not on
Um,
LinkedIn or Substack?
LinkedIn is kind of where I hang out a lot, and Substack as well. Like I said, I have a weekly thing there. I do a monthly newsletter on LinkedIn. I have the weekly on Substack. Substack will also start having my videos too, and then you can also get on my mailing list from my website as well.
Okay.
Um, you can download like a little PDF of just some quick notes you could take with you to the next meeting to make sure that you're prepared and that you're making it effective. It's a little PDF that you can have. But aside from that, those are my chosen places, I
Yeah.
guess.
So, and the PDF they can get by your website?
Yep, you can
Okay.
sign up for it and it'll get you on my mailing list and you can download that PDF.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the
My
time.
pleasure. This was so fun.
It's been such a great conversation. I've learned so much.
Oh, good. Hopefully your audience has too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have. So for those listening, the links will be in the show notes. However, if you don't read, then you've heard them this way, so you don't have to worry about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. All of it helps the algorithm on YouTube.
Yes.
And I want to thank Catherine again for a great conversation, lots of really good tips. And hopefully you hear from some of the listeners and they take advantage of the free PDF.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.